Good day, Industrial Advisor listeners, and thank you for tuning in. If you have not subscribed, please do so by clicking subscribe wherever you podcast. Click the like button and hit the bell if you want notifications of when we put up new content. Leave us a comment about anything we discuss here today or general comments about the show. Now, let's get into it.
Welcome to our Industrial Advisors podcast. We have a 5-minute Friday today with Bill Condon and Matt McGregor on a topic that we love to talk about, the sale leaseback in the marketplace.
That's right. And before we dive in, for those of you that don't know, a couple months ago, we started a YouTube channel so you can watch your favorite podcasts and see Bill's great haircut on YouTube. You just jump on YouTube and search Industrial Advisors and all of our podcast content will be there.
Good stuff. So let's talk about sale leasebacks. Let me first define what a sale leaseback is. So oftentimes a building will be owned by a company and they will want to raise capital for their business or for their retirement, whatever it may be, but want to stay in the building. And so in those situations, we'll structure what we call is a sale leaseback, to where we put a lease in place with that company. We structure it 3, 5, 7, 10 years. It's changed over the years depending on the capital markets, and then bring that building to market with that lease in place. Oftentimes those owners will want to have an option to extend as well, so they can control the building for beyond the original term. But it's a way for them to stay in the building, take the cash out of their building and become a tenant, and then take those funds and do whatever they want with them. And we've seen it a lot over the years.
Yeah, we've done countless transactions with firms doing sale leasebacks. The number one, rule I think that companies need to identify when evaluating the sale leaseback always comes down to one thing, and that is what they can do with the money, basically, versus the fixed cost of real estate. So if you look at a piece of real estate and you say that you're getting, maybe a 3 or a 4% annual increase in the value of the real estate, I think historically you'd say 3%. In a good market, you might push it beyond that, versus what that company could be doing with that money, meaning put it into growth, put it into new lines, put it into acquisitions. And if their return on those funds are 8%, then why would you fix it into real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't.
That's right.
So typically that is the number one first rule a company has to look at is it says, if I take this out of the real estate, can I do better by investing in my company, and whatever that means? And then what is the percentage of the return on that?
Yep. Oh, and different times call for different opportunities to do this, right? Like during the downturn, we saw a lot of companies do it just to pump that money back into the business, to keep the business going, or to make an investment in the business. One of our best clients did it in 2009 or 10, I think. And they weren't doing great, and they used that money, they put it back in their business, and they just ramped up, and they're thriving like no other. But had they not done that sale leaseback, who knows what would have happened. So there are multiple reasons that companies do it.
That's right. And that's a great
one.
example of pulling it out at the right time, because I remember that transaction. It was about $13 million.
Yeah, it was 13.2.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that company at that time, if they sold their company, the building was worth more than the company.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bet that company is far over $100 million now.
Oh, big time. Yeah, that company's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that sale lease transaction catapulted that company.
Mm-hmm.
And if they didn't have that building, I don't think that company would be around today.
Yeah. So oftentimes too, someone, maybe a principal, may be looking to retire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're ready to pull the capital out, but they want to keep the business in place, or they're selling the business, or
keep the real estate and lease it back to the business.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So lots of different, we've done probably over 50 of these in
Sure.
our career.
Absolutely.
And they're always actually really fun to do.
That's
you can
right.
structure it the right way. So what do you look for when you structure a leaseback? What do you want to do when you're representing the owner of the building?
Which side?
Yeah, the owner of the building. Yeah.
So the owner of the building, if I'm selling this now to an institution, you probably want to create some flexibility. You want to get that lease right. So if they want to stay in the building, right, you want to do a long-term lease then with some options to renew to their benefit if it was 95% of market or something, certainly, but flexibility in it. And securing it long term. Like if they want to sell it, but they absolutely say, I never want to move, then maybe you want to do a 10-year lease with 2 5-year options. So they're really controlling that asset from a tenant perspective for, say, 20 years.
Exactly. And if you're just looking at, some principals will say, listen, I just want to maximize the value of this building, the amount of money I'm going to put in my pocket. So we would look at that differently and say, okay,
right.
You're our client. Let's look at the capital markets, right? The capital markets right now would prefer a 3-year deal over a 5-year deal. We would push that rate to the upper echelon of where market is and
shorten the term.
Yeah. So you do a 3 over a 5 and structure it that way,
That's
right?
right.
So it just depends on the motivation of the client and how you want to structure it. I think one thing you want to be careful of that we've tell our clients all the time that are manufacturers is if you're a manufacturing company and you have a lot of infrastructure in the building, it's really important to give yourself flexibility to control that building long term and to build in options and try and even get fixed options, because what oftentimes will happen is on these sale leasebacks or even on just a regular renewal, if it's a manufacturing company, the landlord knows it costs you $1 million to renew or to relocate.
You're going to get hammered.
You're going to pay more than where market is.
That's right.
And so it's important as a company that has a lot of infrastructure to remember that when you're structuring a sale leaseback.
Yeah, then it's really important on those renewal options to define the language of what fair market is, right? Because if you don't have the right language in there, to Bill's point, they can absolutely hammer you, because $1 million is nothing anymore in move costs. I mean, we've seen millions and millions of dollars in move costs.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, that's when a tenant should be, very careful about how they're structuring that lease back and how they're structuring the option language to make sure that a landlord can't do that. Then on the flip side, let's talk about why investors like sale leasebacks. I would say they love them, first of all, because those tenants are obviously in the buildings. They thought enough of that building to buy the building originally, right? So if they're just freeing the capital, they probably don't want to move in the future, right?
Yeah, and another big one too is typically when a company owns their building, they take care of it like they own the building.
That's a great point.
So if you're a tenant, you're not going to take as good of a care of a building as if you were to own that building. And so usually those sale leasebacks are with companies that have taken really good care of the building. Pride of ownership is there. But yeah, you also get to look under the hood when you're an institutional group buying a sale leaseback, because you're jumping into the financials are obviously super important of the tenant on a sale leaseback. Make sure they're going to be around. So you really get a good understanding of the company when you do that. And again, the pride of ownership, I think, is huge too.
That's right. Well, happy Friday. Thanks for listening to 5 Minute Friday on sale leasebacks.
Thank you.